Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Sam, brought to you by Fantasy Focused and the Original Hooters. I am Sam Holt, and I'm super excited to have my amazing guest on, Liz Loza of Yahoo Sports.
Hello. Hi. Sam, I feel like one of the best things about this whole quarantine situation is that we've been brought into each other's lives. I didn't really know much about you before March, and now you're like one of my favorite players. Not players. You're one of my favorite people. Can you tell it's been 7 weeks? Yes. I love seeing you on Instagram and like hearing your takes. I enjoy you as a human.
Thank you so much. I enjoy you so much too. And I feel like what's great about this, because you have to find positivity in these situations, is again, like the community that's, we're all hugging each other tight virtually, but, powering each other to do different things. I'm really happy that I had you on the all-female podcast I had last month. That was super fun. And just all the amazing women in football that are banding together and just putting amazing content out there. It's been amazing. I mean,
I'm schwitzing. Sorry. It is hot. And I think this is like a souvenir from a wedding that I went to in 2014.
I love it. That's
cool.
No worries. No worries at all. And then, amazing news that's come out. You had the amazing, take on Gronkowski coming out of retirement. I'm going to say that you had that. We all know who had the real news there. It was you, 100%.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing. I mean, Gronk is back. That's one small aspect of news that's come out in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, the Gronk interview was wild because I interviewed him 16 hours before he officially came out of retirement. I will also add that Andy Cohen had him on Watch What Happens Live, and he did not come out of retirement to anybody but Adam Schefter. So there's a pecking order, folks.
There is. But you could tell from that tape with him that he was just like about to spit it out to you.
Well, so I did say, we're in Florida for the WWE stadium-less, fan-less experience. I mean, they were in a stadium, but the stadium was empty, which was shot in Florida. And Tom's now down in Florida. Mm-hmm. Are you? And that was the morning that the Patriots unveiled their new uniforms, which was reverting back to the color rush uniforms from 2016. Mm-hmm. And, and Gronk was like, you know what? I'm just taking it one day at a time. And I was like, the next question was going to be about him coming out of retirement. So I'm asking him about Tom right now. And then his girlfriend, who was on the interview too, was like, honey, she didn't mention Tom. Talk about Tom. Babe. She just wanted to know about Tom, not you. And then he was like, oh, well, that was going to be the next question. And I was like, okay. But anyway, back, it was the week of the draft. Like there's a lot going on. So yeah, that was wild. Can I tell a weird story that's similar to that?
100%. Go for it.
I think it's a good story, especially for women in the business or women or anybody in the business who feels like sometimes you hear sideline reporters say, I want to do more. I want to do more than just ask questions, right? And you hear fantasy analysts say well, I have straight NFL takes. I want to be taken seriously as an NFL only analyst or also an NFL analyst, not just a fantasy analyst. And so within the larger umbrella of sports media, there are people always trying to, some people are completely satisfied doing what they're doing and good for them. But those of us who are wanting to grow and build, I was at Super Bowl 2 years ago in Minnesota, 49, Super Bowl 49, right? If this was 51, is that right?
Yes.
If this is 54, I don't remember. LI, whatever. And we were in Minneapolis, and I was interviewing Kirk Cousins, and at the time he was still he was the presumed starter for Washington. They were in talks with one another. And so I interviewed him, and obviously I had to ask him about Washington. And I asked him some questions, and his people were like, we can't ask about all the things. If you want the interview, there's no talking about this, or this. So we adhered to the rules of the interview. And I was very excited because it was my first ever big, especially quarterback, recognizable name interviews. It wasn't fantasy. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was being allowed to do something new and different and trusted in a new capacity. Mm-hmm. And he happens to be from a suburb of Chicago. I am from Chicago. And so we talked a little, and my husband is a giant Washington fan. So when the interview was over, and he and I just kind of hit it off. Like in general, I think in this business, you find out the things that you're good at. And I tend to be pretty good at making other people comfortable. And so, we were like chatting in between shots and afterwards. And I had just had a baby and he had just had a baby. And so, or his wife had just had a baby. So we were talking about like having a little one at home and how exhausting that is, and working at the same time, and being from the Midwest. And so I said, I know this is a little bit cheesy, but do you mind shooting a video for my husband, who's a giant, not just Washington fan, but Kirk Cousins fan, and I could give it to him for Valentine's Day, just a shout out on my phone. So he did. And then afterwards he's like, so do you guys go to DC a lot? And I'm like, no, we live in LA, and I saw where we went to high school. And he goes, but you're from the Midwest. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and you like the Midwest? And I was like, yeah, I love it here. Like, even being in Minneapolis, it feels like home. And he was like, yeah, I really like it here too. And I was like, cool. Yeah, it's great. It's sweet. And he goes, no, I mean, like, if I had to be in DC or in the Midwest, I'd much prefer to like raise the family and everything in the Midwest. And I was like, yeah. And he was like Minneapolis is great. And I was like, okay, yeah, I agree. And I thought he was just being like really friendly. And so I started to feel awkward because I'm like, doesn't he have somewhere else to be? Like, I don't want to be taking up his time. And this is my first, like, one of these at the company, like big Super Bowl interviews, Yeah. And then like 4 hours later, we were at the media party, and I was with my editor, who then spent all of the time editing the interview, and one of my producers, and we're going up, like, the media party was at the Mall of America, which has like a amusement park in it. So we're like on a roller coaster. It's awesome. Yeah. We're like on a roller coaster going, and all of us have the Yahoo app on our phone, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And the alerts all went off at the same time. And we like looked down, and the timing was out. It says like Alex Smith traded to the Redskins. And I was like, oh, and then we're all like, ah! And, and we're just like, holy crap, we have to re-edit everything. And also I was like, he was trying to tell me that he was not going to re-sign in DC, but was coming to me. Because then there was all this speculation, right, about like, where is Kirk Cousins going? People were like, no, he's going to Cleveland. And a lot of people were like, no, he's going to the Broncos because John Elway, like, that's the kind of quarterback John Elway likes. And I was like, I think he's going to Minnesota. And they're like, that would never happen. Case Keenum is here. He just had he had a great year. They almost went to the Super Bowl. And I was like, no, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a Viking.
Yeah.
And none of the dudes were like hearing it. No. And it was so intense that I even was like, I guess I'm wrong. Like, no one else thinks this. So I guess I'm wrong. And then he went to the damn Vikings, and I was so bummed. I didn't like stick to my guns and listen harder and trust my gut, but also that I just like didn't trust that I was doing what I was doing well enough to be trusted with that kind of information.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Gronk thing kind of reminded me of that.
I mean, that's frustrating too, because in similar situations, obviously outside of media, but just in work situations, I've been in a situation where, everyone's telling you you're wrong all at the same time. And you're like, okay, if you're all saying it at the same time, maybe I'm the crazy one.
Yeah.
But I feel like women too quickly and too easily just assume, oh no, yeah, we're the crazy one and we're wrong, when we're actually 100% right.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
So it was a really good lesson. And so like now I tend to be like evaluating that line of being stubborn and having a take lock versus like, no, I'm pretty sure that my evidence here is sound.
Yeah. No, so, you gotta stick to your guns. I love that story. I mean, that's crazy also that you heard the alert when you're on a roller coaster.
Yeah, all of us in a row.
And then we fall down. But okay, so one thing that you do on your Instagram that I love and I have to point out is that you assign drinks to players. And I want to hear more about this logic, because I haven't made the Dark and Stormy. That's the Tom Brady, but it sounds delicious. And I want to hear what goes into these recipes.
Well, so again, before quarantine, I was never much of a chef. Now I cook 5 days a week, which has been a total, like, we all are. I mean, I envy like people like you who are like unattached and are like, I'm going to take up crocheting and all of the hobbies and write like the King Lear, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just trying to survive my children and my job. But I also like wanted to take out a challenge, and I'm a horrible cook. My husband jokes all the time that I poisoned him, which is true. I've given him food poisoning 4 times over our relationship. And so I was like, okay, this is the moment that I'm going to become a better cook. Like, it is only going to serve me in my life to have another skill like this. So
sure. And there's so many things on like ways you can order things, recipes available. So I'm sure you're just like, bring it on.
And I like the organization of it. Helps make me feel like I'm in control of something, even though that is a complete construct and illusion. Sure. But so before that, though, I've always been a really good drink maker, like a good bartender. My husband always says my wife can't cook for shit, but she can make a hell of a drink. And it's true. And I love to mess with the concoctions and come up with flavor profiles. And I was a cocktail waitress for way too long back in the day.
It's a skill to have, though. It's an amazing skill. I need to get better at it. I love old fashions, and I need to just get into making my own so that I don't have to go out for it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, any of that stuff, that's quarantine is providing a great opportunity. But before, so I also used to have done on my IG these cocktail making just for fun, and I made up a cocktail to pair with a combine. And when I was watching free agency, though, I kept saying man, the NFL got drunk. They just got drunk. So then I was like, oh, well, that's on brand, right? Even though I hate hashtag on brand, but I was like, I've been making these cocktails, and to me, sometimes you see, I don't know, different horoscopes or different things might say here are the signs as snap crackers, and here are the signs as your favorite dessert. And so I was like, well, mine is liquor and cocktails, because there's a craft to it, there's a chemistry to it, right? So I was just all right, let's do 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 quarterbacks. And so the quarterback ones I posted on Friday, and it was Tom Brady to the Buccaneers, and I chose a dark and stormy. I felt like we had to have a pirate theme, and rum is a spirit associated with the high seas and roguish behavior. So dark and stormy is a favorite among angry pirates, which I felt was a good pairing for him. And then Phillip Rivers to the Colts was a little bit tricky, because Phillip Rivers is doesn't have much of a personality.
I think that's a very accurate way of describing him. I mean, what we all know about him is he has a ton of kids. So, I mean, you picked a perfect drink for him that I think makes sense for having that many kids.
So his was a finely aged Cabernet that has to be paired with a thick slab of beef.
Yes.
And so his offensive line would be the beef that was protecting one's palate from the pungentness of this fine aged wine that could probably be amazing if it had the necessary accompaniment. So that was the rationale there.
I love that. I think that's perfect. I mean, I'm curious to see how Rivers is going to do there. I mean, obviously he has some pretty nice new toys in Jonathan Taylor, but I mean, that's an exciting rookie there. And I can just run down, top rookies, and we can talk about how much we love where they landed too. But where Phillip Rivers in particular, he had so many great weapons with the Chargers. And there were so many times that I feel like he just missed the mark, missed the pass, dropped the ball in a way. How can we get excited with this new amazing offensive line that he has, that protection? Is the timing going to help him here?
Well, you saw Phillip Rivers writing checks that his body couldn't cash last year.
Absolutely.
But I have to wonder, how much of that was because of the line? If he had more time, would he not have made a decision hoping and praying his shoulder could deliver, or would he have had a chance to not just assume he had to push it deep, right?
Yeah.
Or so I feel optimistic. And one of my favorite rookies in this year's draft, and a perfect fit for what I think Indianapolis needs, is Michael Pittman, who they selected with their first pick of the NFL draft and the second of the second round. I think Michael Pittman in any other year in a draft class that wasn't necessarily this deep would have been a first round selection. I mean, he almost was anyway. And I think he has a versatility, can play outside and in, be that big slot but he also is so polished. His dad played in the NFL. His dad is a Super Bowl winning running back. And you can see some of that in his after the catch ability, because he definitely runs with a swag and a toughness after the catch. There's a physicality about him. He doesn't have long speed, but he has, you know, the physicality and the football IQ to make things happen. I think he's going to be an immediate impact player. Last year, Zach Pascal drew 70 targets in Indianapolis. Like, just let that sink in. And admittedly, like, T.Y. wasn't healthy and the whole season, and he hasn't been for 2 straight seasons. He hasn't managed to complete a full season for 2 years in a row. Jacoby Brissett had some problems, and you know, this team was not a team that was anticipating it looking the way it looked in July, right? Like, they're expecting Andrew Luck out there. So I think there was a lot of adjustment, but I also think that you could tell from both the Jonathan Taylor selection as well as the Michael Pittman selection that the Colts are definitely leaning into this 1 to 2 year window that they have, or they feel they have, with Phillip Rivers. And I think that I think, you know, the division is a difficult division. And so that'll be interesting to see if they'll, it's not going to be an easy fight, but they're definitely leaning into it. And I am more optimistic about Phillip Rivers delivering because of the offensive line and because of the weapons than I was, you know, when he was in Los Angeles.
None of us can remember to say Los Angeles. I don't think we'll ever get used to it. I think, honestly, we'll all get more used to saying Las Vegas Raiders than we will Los Angeles.
That's a good point.
I feel like that's much easier than, for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe because they don't really have a fan base even in LA here. It's hard to associate them with LA when there's not enough love, you know, just for the Chargers in general.
For sure. I mean, and let me be clear that when I say I'm more optimistic than most, I also have Phillip Rivers as my QB 21 on the season. So no, I'm not drafting him in season long, but like, he's inside my top 25, almost at my top 20. So,
I mean, would you like him as a super flex option super late if you were treating super flex where you maybe took someone super early, like a Mahomes early, and then you just waited on your second and then, you know, stacked on the offensive weapons otherwise?
It'll be interesting. It's actually tomorrow. I'm doing a draft for Yahoo, and we're all going to, Dalton Del Don, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, myself, and Scott Pianowski are doing our first live draft. So I want to see how the chips fall, and I want to see where people are in the moment valuing things. Because I think Derek Carr, for example, is going to slip and be an amazing value. So I might, in a super flex, take Carr if we're talking about an improvement of weapons over Phillip Rivers, who still has more of a brand name, and I think might be, because of that, more, and everyone knows about this O-line argument, there might be more trust in him. And so I think that, like, Derek Carr would probably be my, like, really super valuable second quarterback in a super flex.
Okay, I like that. I feel like with Carr, everyone's discounting him immediately, and it makes me feel bad for the guy, because I feel like Derek Carr is also one of those players that he's just known for being just a classic nice guy. And so it makes me feel bad that it's like the job's been taken away from him before it's even really been taken away because of the way people are talking about him. So I do feel like he's going to slip and fall through the cracks, but I also don't see him losing that job.
Not to Marcus Mariota. I mean, Steve Weish made this point during free agency, and I thought it was one of the most salient and something I hadn't heard. Steve Weish of the NFL Network, that people call Las Vegas the 10th island or something like this, the 7th island, something, because there's a giant Polynesian population there. And so, there were rumors of like Tua going there. Because if you're building a new franchise in a new location, then you need to, well, in a normal year, you need to sell tickets, but you still need to sell gear. And
a fan base.
And Marcus Mariota is still having, I mean, he and Tua went to the same high school. They're from the same island. He still is able to pull some of that. So I think maybe the Marcus Mariota ad was more about branding. Than John Gruden being a quarterback collector. I mean, he is, but I think that was more about like, oh, we're building a franchise. Let's make a business decision here. And I think that Derek Carr, I mean, the major knock against him, right, is that he's like a check down Charlie.
Yeah.
And what I do think is fascinating about, we have to remember that Mike Mayock is like an excellent talent evaluator. And when I saw the Henry Ruggs pick, I was definitely like, oh, this is so vintage Raiders, like Al Davis, the ghost of Al Davis is selecting the speedster. But like, also, how's that going to work? Like Tyrell Williams does kind of that. So why wouldn't they find like a Jerry Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb who could do all of the things?
Yeah.
And then when they took Bryan Edwards, I was like, oh, that was the plan. Bryan Edwards is going to be their possession guy. And then they've got a slew of, you know, slot options, even this new Vaughn character and Hunter Renfrow, who flashed opportunity, and Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr had some great rapport. They added Nelson Aguilar. Like, these are all some like small ball slot options. But now they've got Bryan Edwards, who can work as their perimeter guy, and then they can have Henry Ruggs on the opposite end of the field be that speed element of taking the top off defenses. And Tyrell Williams, to me, is the odd man out. Where Derek Carr is a huge winner because there's no threat behind him, and he's got a massive amount of weapons. So, and I also think Josh Jacobs, for what it's worth, is a huge winner here now, because the number of stacked boxes that he's going to see are going to decrease significantly, allowing him some real room to run. And with the exit of DeAndre Washington, there's more opportunity for him in the passing game.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that. And as someone that owns Josh Jacobs in a Dynasty League I've been in for 10 years, I'm very excited to hear that take because I want to see even more growth out of my beloved Josh Jacobs, as he helped me win a championship last year, and I was very grateful for that. But so anytime I can open up that running back and know that that value pick is going to be someone I want to hold on to makes me excited for sure. But, you know, we're talking about the rookies, and I love that you brought up Henry Ruggs. I was surprised that he went as early as he did, given, you know, the other opportunities at wide receiver. Like you just said, why not a CeeDee Lamb there? Why not a Jerry Jeudy? But what do you think of their landing spots? I think that there's, you know, about a top 10 tier of receivers and running backs. We've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire that we're all excited about with Kansas City, Jerry Jeudy to Denver, CeeDee Lamb to Dallas, Jonathan Taylor to Indianapolis, obviously Ruggs to the Raiders, DeAndre Swift to the Lions, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor. I mean, of those names, are there any that are particularly exciting to you, that you're particularly stashing in some of your drafts?
I think J.K. Dobbins, who you didn't mention in Dynasty, is a player that, I mean, I don't like stashing running backs in Dynasty because the value of a running back is obviously decreased significantly, especially given the evolution of the position and the market that it is demanding. But I think J.K. Dobbins, I actually had him ahead in my personal rankings of Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. I had Dobbins, Taylor, Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my top four. And then Cam Akers is my number 5. I think that, listen, after this year, the Ravens can get out of their deal with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram is over 30 years old. We know what happens at 30 with the cliff that exists, particularly for running backs. And he has seemed to morph into a hype man, into a mentor of sorts, right? Yeah. And he seems like a pretty savvy guy, and so I'm sure of his evolution. J.K. Dobbins is a pro in pass protection. He's already well-versed in pass protection, where most rookie running backs, that is where their skill set has the biggest efficiency when moving to the next level. And I think that Dobbins has, like, if you look at what he did at Ohio State, he was a starter as a true freshman. Like, he announced his authority. He announced his presence, rather, with authority the minute he arrived. And I think there's some stat. It's like, of the 43 games he played in at OSU, he started 41. It's a wild amount, you know.
That's a big number for that position.
Yes, he broke all sorts of records for the Buckeyes, and he doesn't have as many carries. They're up there, certainly, but he doesn't have as many as Jonathan Taylor, who carried the ball over 900, touched the ball over 900 times while he was in Wisconsin. So I think Dobbins is a great pick. I think he fits perfectly. I mean, obviously, also, if you have the fact that he's a pass protector, that is going to get him on the field immediately, even as a rookie, because what is the number one goal of the Ravens but to keep Lamar Jackson healthy? Then you have an electric quarterback. We've seen how mobile quarterbacks open up other holes for running backs. I think this is a great situation for him. I really, really like that landing spot fit, the whole thing. I mentioned Michael Pittman. I like that a lot. I don't hate the Jalen Reagor pick as much as Eagles fans do, frankly. Like, you know, when we were together last, Michelle made an excellent point about how she was unsure that Justin Jefferson could be as productive and reliable as we saw him be at LSU if he didn't have a speedster like Jamar Chase on the other side of the field. And I thought that was an excellent point. And I bring that to when we're talking about Philadelphia and these Eagles fans who are really upset that they didn't get just like a reliable slot man, like natural hands, someone who we can just count on, the anti-Nelson Aguilar, right? If you're throwing babies out of windows, you know Justin Jefferson's not going to drop it. Yeah. And so, but the question is like, so who's the outside speed demon or number one presence that intimidates a defense? I mean, we're not sure that Alshon Jeffrey's going to be there. Deshaun Jackson is over 30 and went up lame in the first week of last year. That's not reliable. But Jalen Reagor performed best when he was used, when the scheme was manipulated to use him in gadgety ways. There's a lot of overlap with what Curtis Samuel was initially drafted for. Now, Curtis Samuel's skill set evolved beyond being just a gadget player. And I think that Rager's has the opportunity to do that. He just hasn't seen as many reps because of the awful quarterback play at TCU as a, quote, regular receiver, a standard receiver, right? But I think he has that in his skill set. And then when Doug Peterson, which Yahoo Sports' Charles Robinson confirmed, the Jalen Hurts pick in the second round was very much a coach's pick. It wasn't a front office pick or an ownership pick. It was definitely a coach's pick. And so Doug Peterson finds this, like, he wants to be creative, you know, like he finds Jalen Reagor, who is a moldable, malleable, versatile receiver. And then he finds Jalen Hurts, who was one of the most prolific rushing quarterbacks, the most prolific rushing quarterback in terms of on the ground production that Nick Saban has ever had at Alabama. The knock against him, in fact, was that he wasn't a passer because he always reverted to his legs. And when he left Alabama and went to Oklahoma, the knock against him was that they shifted the offense to suit his mobility. Well, that to me sounds like he can be a bit of a Swiss Army knife, Taysom Hill gadget player. So it also, that pick helped me confirm my suspicion about Doug Peterson wanting to get creative and not just thinking that like Frank Reich was the guy who gets to own the Philly special that won them the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Yeah. So I love Jalen Reagor's pick. I am much higher on him than, I mean, listen, all of this is tough to say because we don't know what an abbreviated offseason is going to look like. And I am very much a believer in evolution. I believe in evolution. At me. I don't think the earth is flat. And if we are going to believe in evolution, which I know is wild, then we also have to take into consideration that evolution takes time. And rapport and chemistry are not just things that happen immediately. Even when, you know, you like meet like another person, whether it's platonic and romantic, and you just like hit it off, it takes a minute before you're finishing each other's sentences, right? Like that takes time. That actually is why I think Rob Gronkowski to Tampa Bay is so fascinating because, you know, everyone's very excited, obviously, including the Buccaneers for good reason, that Tom Brady, the GOAT, is coming to Florida. And they went immediately, Tampa Bay did, to like protect him with a tackle pick in the first round, right? Like that's it. We're going to make sure we do good on this. But also, you have to think like, well, why get him another receiver? He's got Mike Evans. I mean, talk about a catch radius. You've got Chris Godwin, who can climb all the ladders and high point all the balls and do all the things. And now you've got this athletic tight end, OJ Howard. But if Tom Brady doesn't have time or opportunity due to quarantine and social distancing rules, which I don't think he gives a shit about, but whatever.
No, he's going into strangers' houses.
It's fine. It's Tom Brady. But in theory, like, why not get him his most successful security blanket? One that he doesn't need all of this time to get back on the same page with. Ironically, again, they're both in Florida right now.
Yes.
And Gronk did confirm to me that he was on East Coast time. I didn't ask him about his exact location, so I'm going to gather between that he is indeed still in Florida where he had done the WWE performance.
Yeah. And
they won 3 Super Bowls.
So
yes.
It can be
they won 3. Yeah. They won 3 Super Bowls together, right? So that to me is Bruce Arians thinking ahead for the quarterback, which he is want to do, right? That's his reputation. And knowing that he can get him a security blanket immediately. And so I think more and more in terms of fantasy, like as excited as I am about these rookies, I don't force, like there is an even larger obstacle than just like the draft season hangover or, you know, the rookie learning curve here for these players. There is just a literal amount of reps. And so in fantasy, I'm looking to draft players that are not on the move in free agency or, you know, the newest piece to the puzzle. I'm trying to find players that have been more established because I think, especially at the top of the season, there's going to be also, I mean, what kind of shape are these guys going to be in?
What kind of shape are they in? I mean, they can do Zoom meetings all day to learn the playbook, 100%. I mean, they can do all of this and they can get this right. But there's a difference between understanding the play in hand and actually running and getting those reps and performing those drills, performing those plays. And like you just said, the familiarity that Brady has with Gronk, just that security of knowing, I know he'll be where I tell him to be because we've done this for years. So, and
it's like, do you remember the first time when you were a kid, you did a cartwheel?
Yeah.
Like how many times did it take you, because you're going to put your head upside down, did it take you to actually do the cartwheel? Like that's all, it's like the metaphor in my head of what I keep thinking about is that like, I remember being a kid and being like, oh, watching cheerleaders or like watching gymnastics and being like, or when I went to gymnastics, like watching the big girls do cartwheels, and I was like, I'm going to try one. And the first time was a disaster because I watched it a million times, but it wasn't until you put it into your body and felt confident enough doing it that you actually did it. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of like cartwheels that need to be learned here.
Yes, that and the muscle memory, I think, is a big part of just the exercise of running that same drill, running that same play. But then also for someone like Tom Brady to have the confidence in someone that's like a newer person that he's not familiar with to be where he needs them to be. Obviously, he's the professional that he is, and he's, you know, probably communicating with these guys regularly, but how many times can he actually get the ball in their hands before it's game time?
And it's not like we didn't see him get frustrated about that last year.
Yeah.
And he had Julian Edelman last year, and he had James White last year, and we saw him lose his shit at Philip Dorsett how many times?
Yes. I mean, nobody wants Tom Brady mad at them. Definitely looking at that sideline footage, nobody wants that. So hopefully, I mean, fantasy owners, if anything, the Gronk, you know, spike and hype train for drafting him early is going to probably take off pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's also interesting, right? Like I was tweaking my tight end rankings and I think I have him tight end 10, but a lot of people have him in their top 6. But I just can't, I mean, I do think he's going to be a top 10 option, but I'm being a little bit more conservative than I'm definitely taking Darren Waller, for example, at the 5 spot ahead of Rob Gronkowski, because even as I was just talking about all of the exciting new pieces coming to Las Vegas, the existing piece that we know was the most outside of Josh Jacobs, the biggest producer for the Raiders last year, I want to say Oakland Raiders, for the Raiders last year was Darren Waller. And so we know that rapport exists. So I'm going to bump Waller ahead, even though there are, quote, more mouths to feed now.
Yes. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I mean, when you're going through these rankings, I think all of us are going to have this in the back of our heads too. I think there's a lot of excitement right now. All of us are so thirsty for sports in general. I mean, we're all, you know, eating up The Last Dance because we're just missing basketball so much, but also it's Michael Jordan. So we're going to eat it up because it's awesome. But I mean, at the same time, we also have to have this realistic thought in the back of our heads. What is this season going to look like if we get this season? Because, you know, we hear all these reports coming in and I think that the NBA was first and foremost in shutting stuff down quicker than other organizations were. And that was great of them to be the leaders of that. But if they're the leaders, we're also going to look to them to see what's the next move. So They were supposed to open up practice facilities, I think, on Friday. And I believe it was the Hawks that said that they didn't want to, and then they just canceled all of it and said, no, we're not going to open yet. So what the next step they take is going to kind of predict what football is going to do. But everyone keeps saying football's untouchable. It makes too much money. There's no way they'll cancel football. I feel like that's a bit naive.
I think that without getting into a conversation that polarizes people and their political beliefs,
Sure,
you can look at the two leagues and see which ones lean which direction. And I mean, you can look at, and this is, I'm not politicizing this, these are just facts. You can look at the Colin Kaepernick controversy and see where the president and different owners, which side they were on, right?
Sure.
It is not a players' league.
Yeah.
The NBA very much is about the players. It advocates Steve Kerr, head coach of the Warriors, right? Like tweets politically all the time. He is very left leaning. Adam Silver does. I think he's fairly transparent. I mean, you've got the Phoenix Suns wearing Los Suns jerseys. Like this is a league that is not afraid to lean into social justice causes, which tend to lean politically a little bit more left than right.
Sure.
And I think this is an election year.
Yeah.
And Trump has made it very clear that he has relationships in the NFL. And I think that he is going to push the NFL or ask them kindly to make sure there's a season so that there's certainly some optimism and happy distraction in November.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
I just feel like also to that end, like, I think the powers that be want football to happen very badly. And so it is likely football will happen.
Yes.
And also, it's different than football is also different than basketball in that as much as it is a brutal contact sport, players are wearing pads. They're fully clothed. Like there's helmets. So it's not, and a lot of players already wear a visor. Players have mouth guards. It wouldn't surprise me to see some sort of face shield like you see at the grocery store now, right? Between the checkout person.
Yes, absolutely.
Like adding that sort of extra bit to a helmet does not seem wild, right? It's a little weird, but it doesn't seem like it wouldn't already fit. Watching basketball players in full clothes, with all of their limbs covered, doing that sort of cardio, wearing giant like space helmets
wouldn't make sense or actually be very physically possible.
So like the exchange of sweat and saliva is a little like more likely in the NBA than I think in the NFL. So like
that's a great point.
There's a layeredness about that.
Yeah, I mean, just the physical contact, you're so much closer. And I mean, I have to laugh because it kind of reminds me of, do you remember that scene in Along Came Polly where they're playing basketball? Ben Stiller's face just hits Philip Seymour Hoffman the wrong way. Or no, it wasn't him, it was the other guy. Just like right up against the sweatiness. Just like, I mean, there's a lot more contact in basketball.
Yeah, my friend Masioka is, I should say my husband's friend Masioka is in that movie.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know that. I love that movie. It's totally random. But yeah, so I know we're all hopeful to get our sports back. I'm just hopeful for safe sports. And I'm hopeful that we're, as fans, we can safely watch sports the way we want to. I mean, if we don't.
We're not going to be in stadiums.
No, we won't be in stadiums. But I mean, the bars are going to also probably have a limit on how many people are allowed in.
Yeah, I mean, also, don't you think that means a lot more NFL ticket subscriptions?
Yeah, probably. That's probably going to, help viewership. I mean, we had the highest NFL draft viewership. Yeah. I mean, than ever before. And it was a joint deal with NFL Network and ESPN to make sure that everything was brought to everyone. So I definitely think that viewership's going to go up, especially because everyone's hungry for obviously our sports. So hopefully we get our season. If it's a little bit less games, maybe or maybe not. But again, I really hope that everyone's safe in the way that they do it.
I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, all of this circling back to talking rookies and, being on like that positive side, the learning curve that these rookies are going to have 110% different than it's going to be any other year. So for Deep Dynasty, I'm stocking up on these guys, but I have tempered expectations and feel like year 2 is going to be better than year 1.
Yeah, it's hard. because we're being asked as like fans, analysts, humans to reconcile excitement and hope in a time so desperate for those two things with pragmatism.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants that right now. I mean, you can see blatantly people are protesting against pragmatism. And so, you know, like it is difficult because as you're sitting here, I'm just like, yeah, but like, man, like Cleveland and Cincinnati are both real squads now. And like that division, much to your chagrin, doesn't just belong to Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Like,
yeah,
black and blue football. And there's offensive players. And I thought Cincinnati had one of the best drafts. And, you know, they get that first round rookie tackle back this season from injury. And I'm just like excited about what Joe Burrow can do. I don't like the T. Higgins fit.
No,
I like the player, just don't like the landing spot very much. I thought, to me, he comped to someone out of Clemson. You mentioned him on the last show we did because he didn't participate in the drills at the combine.
Yeah.
Although he did have a pro day because his Clemson's pro day was in early March before quarantine and lockdown was official.
Yeah.
But, you know, like a guy who can high point, a glider. My colleague, the Yahoo Sports draft expert, Eric Edholm, comped him to AJ Green. I thought he was more like Preston Williams, like a little bit raw. Yeah. But, you know, obviously Cincinnati they're looking towards the future, but they were also, unlike the Green Bay Packers, for example, a team that was able to secure players who had the potential to make an impact immediately. The Packers, to me, I mean, like, oh, girl. Can we talk about Green Bay for a second? Because I don't
really quickly. Yes. Oh my God, Green Bay.
I have been saying that like Matt LaFleur has 2021 vision.
Yeah.
It is very obvious to me because everybody was like, well, why didn't they give Aaron Rodgers any receivers? We were at the NFC title game seeing Aaron Rodgers struggle, not get a damn receiver. Well, maybe the Packers don't believe that they're actually in a Super Bowl window. That's it. Yeah. They don't buy it. And this draft was not for Aaron Rodgers. This draft was for their 40-year-old head coach, which is very young for a head coach.
Yep.
And his new time in Green Bay. This is Goody saying, there's a new king in town, Aaron. Mm-hmm. So I think Jordan Love, that's a project. But head coaches, especially those who learned under Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they're interested in challenges. They don't want to be worse than their predecessors who were considered two of the youngest and brightest minds, offensive minds in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know, I just think, I'm sorry, it was Matt LaFleur was Shanahan's pupil, not Sean McVay's. I confused him with Zach Taylor for a second, the other young guy. No. But Matt LaFleur is 40.
Yes.
He's similarly aged to Aaron Rodgers. He is not interested in playing this game with Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Right?
He's not interested in the politics of, you know, you being the senior.
Surprise anyone. When you look at the 2018 Tennessee Titans, where he was the OC, the whole first 6 weeks, month of the season, everybody was saying like Deion Lewis, Derrick Henry, he's so indecisive. Who's going to be the RB1? And then finally he landed on Derrick Henry in week 14, unleashed him. The Titans have thanked him for that since. And now he goes into the draft. He picks a player that comps closely to Derrick Henry. He knows he can he knows he can succeed with that. And Aaron Jones, as awesome as he has been for fantasy, has a fumbling issue. And also, no one is mentioning the fact that when both Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones were healthy, their snap count was like 55% to 45%. When they were both on the field, they were playing pretty even number of snaps.
Yes, they absolutely were.
This guy is not interested in having something that doesn't look like a platoon. And if he does, he's going to do it with a player who has a skill set that he knows how to utilize.
Yeah.
It's his draft. He's 2021 vision. This is not the draft for Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Danica, because now she's stuck in a house with him.
Poor Danica. I mean, I feel like speaking of 2021 and just talking about Aaron Rodgers, and I mean, we all kind of heard a few of the words that Brett Favre said about what he feels maybe Aaron Rodgers is thinking, you know, one of those conversations where it's like, I think I know what someone's thinking, you know, those are always delightful, but
I would love to hear what my exes think. They think that's good. That'd be
I would
great.
love to, hear what anyone thinks I think as well. That'd be great.
Right.
I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that they think I'm, well, I have very weird interests. Football separated from everything else. I watch a lot of zombie movies and Marvel movies. There's a lot of reasons I'm single, but that aside,
You should be matched up immediately.
the stats aren't aligning in my favor. I think maybe I'm just with the wrong offense. Maybe I need a different coordinator.
I love that. That's interesting because just on this point, because since we're like two women talking about football, people are always saying to my husband, like out in the world, we live in LA, so like that like when I say out on a Friday night, you know what that looks like.
Sure.
So we're out on a Friday night, maybe we're on the West Side, maybe we're in Hollywood, whatever, and I don't go out in sweatpants.
No, and because we live in LA, we're not expected to do that.
Can't do it.
I've had dates ask me if my hair is my hair because I have very long hair, and a lot of people wear clip-ins because it's LA, and a lot of people, do the fake lashes and all those things. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I've done them before, sure, but like to actually be asked, "Is that your hair?" I'm like,
by a man that you're on a date with.
Yes, but on a first date. Like, come on. This is like a third date question. Come on.
Oh, this is also just the like, why don't you tug and find out? Like, exactly.
I should do some investigative work.
You have my consent. But so everyone's like, oh man, bro, like your wife, she like knows so much about football. She gets paid to watch football. And he was like, yeah. So do you know what my Sundays look like? Like I'm chasing two toddlers on Sunday while my wife is got her fake lashes on and her hair did, and she's at the studio from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I don't get to watch football anymore. That bee is analyzing every backfield in the city, like every backfield in the country.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? So like everyone is that like your wife's just like pretty or whatever, and she's smart and she watches football. And then he's like, yeah, big winner.
I get to watch the kids. But also, that's such a trooper thing for your husband. At least he does that.
Oh, he is fine. He's not a trooper. Like he did.
He did 100%. Yes. And I mean, I think it's funny too. Like you say, like you would think that based on my stats that I would, be wifed up pretty dang quick. But apparently being really into football, really into, Marvel movies, I draw a lot of like monsters and zombies and stuff. You'd think guys would be into maybe a little bit of that, and not really so much.
So is it because they're just like super intimidated and they want to be the best at all of the like monster bullshit and the Marvel stuff?
I don't know. I think also because I've always been someone that I find a lot of different subjects fascinating. So I just love to learn. I love learning about different things. So I think guys really like to be kind of the person teaching someone. So when they tell me something, oh, did you know blank? And I'm like, yeah, I knew that. Like I need to just
like that. Oh, they don't like that.
They don't like that at all. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I knew that. Like, I bet you can tell me who the MVP was last year. Yeah, I can. Like, I mean, I don't know what kind of weird trivia game you're playing with me, but yes, I can tell you.
Oh my gosh, that is. Oh, I know we're probably like I've had a whole cocktail. So,
I'll put in this one.
On like Twitter yesterday, did you see? So Padma Lakshmi, I think her name is.
Oh yeah, she was the host. She is the host of Top Chef, and she was pounding Patron.
Yeah, she was pounding Patron, and like obviously it's not actually tequila, right? It's probably apple juice.
It's probably apple juice.
Right. So I just retweeted it with like a crown, like queen, like crowns. And then a bunch of people are like, oh my God, she's amazing. Cause it was like when school says that it's official, the kids won't come back until the fall.
Yeah.
And she just like says, fuck it. And like, and she's like all perfectly, like she's got the perfect like setup and it's great. Cause she like, is antithetical to that. It makes everyone laugh. And then this one guy was like, you do know that was not tequila, but apple juice in my mentions. And I'm like, you do know that I didn't need to be mansplained about the fucking joke.
You do know. We all know.
That's apple juice. Like, yes. Thank you, Sherlock, for pulling back the curtain.
Exactly. Like on the episode of Parks and Rec where Ron Swanson takes a bottle of moonshine, a jug of moonshine, does this and drinks the whole thing. Yes, I'm pretty sure that was just water because it was acting.
Yes. You do know, Sam. But also the fact that you're like referencing Parks and Rec, we do have to talk. You should not be single. Let's go.
Yeah, I know. I get a lot of jokes from my friends saying that they want to put me on some show, and I've had people go into my DMs to ask me to go on to things, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't be on The Bachelor because I'm not going to sit by a bunch of other girls. I'd be like, can anyone talk to me about a draft and give me a phone, because I need a phone to know who's injured and I need to set my lineup because I cannot just be sitting around talking about our nails. I never do my nails. I only did them because I'm bored as shit. Like,
I have not done mine because I don't know how to do mine by myself because I'm a bougie bitch. But I will say, hold on. I have a Bachelor fantasy before we talk a little bit more. My Bachelor fantasy is I am married.
Yes.
My Bachelor fantasy is that I go on The Bachelor, and that I basically say to him, like during that first,
getting out of the car.
Yeah. Not the getting out, but at that whole like gathering, that whole cocktail party.
Yeah.
Pull him aside. Everyone pulls him aside and they do their like, you're going to remember me by the number of buttons on my shirt or the champagne I brought from my 27th birthday, whatever the hell. And so I mine is to be like, listen, I'm not it. I'm not it for you. That's totally fine. But I tell you what, I want to be left alone for the length of this filming. I want nothing more than to sit in a fucking hot tub and eat cubes of cheese and drink. So I'm going to be your mole. I'm going to tell you everything. I don't care if you're looking for love or if you're looking for a fantasy sweet night. I will tell you, I will be it. I will be the mole. I'll tell you all the things. The only, you don't pick me. Please don't pick me. It will ruin my marriage.
Yes.
But I need to get to the bottom 3 so I can get my ass to Fiji or wherever the hell we're going. And I can go on a vacation. I'll tell you everything. And if all you're looking for is like tabloids, I'll get you that. If you want your true life, I'll tell you which one can do that for you. Just let me be your mole. That is like every time I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I could just like I could incept all of this and be on a vacation eating cheese.
Eating cheese. That would be the best. It would be fun too to also be the one that stirs stuff up. Be like, so you want to know if she's crazy or not? I'll figure it out for you. And then you just do the thing where you take someone's snack and then throw it on the floor and be like, oh my God, she did it. And then start the cat fights. That would be so much fun.
Fantastic. And meanwhile, they would just be like panning to me like by myself, eating the cheese.
Yeah, these bitches is crazy.
But really, Chad and I had a wonderful time skiing the Alps.
It was so much fun. I ditched his ass on the slopes and I went to the bar by myself.
And he liked it. Like, I'd be like, literally, you don't have to talk to me. You have to care about my feelings. None of it. Yeah. I'll just leave me alone. Please, somebody leave me alone.
That would be amazing. My friends tried to get me on Colton's season because they heard that he was a football player, and they were like, oh my God, Sam, that would be so perfect because you like football. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I would get out of that car and be like, hey, I love fantasy football and I've never heard of you. You must have been terrible. Like, that doesn't sound like a really good intro for me. Like, if I never would draft you, I don't know that I want to hang out with you.
True.
I mean, I want to pick winners that are good at their craft. If you're a failed football player, I don't know that I want to date that. No offense to those that have. I just feel like missing the mark. But oh well. So yeah. Back to more football stuff. But did I lose you or wait?
Oh, no, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay, cool.
I was checking Twitter to make sure nobody was like going after us yet.
Oh, I would love that. That would be super fun. I haven't had anyone go after me on Twitter yet. Everyone's been super nice. I think I've had one person tell me that I should do something else. And I was like, well, if you could be more specific with what that something is, maybe I'll give it a try. But, yeah, thanks for your insight. I'm so glad that you took that moment to at me. But, no, besides that, everyone's been very friendly on the Twitterverse. And then I do have people that try and slide into my DMs. Don't know that that's 100% up my alley, but given once quarantine is over, maybe I'll re-download an app or two. I've deleted all of them since. I feel like I don't want to start online dating when everyone is just thirsty and at home because I'm not going to get the best out of people.
Also, can you go any? I mean, like, you can't like, I mean, I don't know if I want to like, I don't know if I would start messing with like breaking quarantine and trusting social distancing rules with somebody on a dating app. I don't.
No, I mean, if I can't trust someone to be who they are when I meet them in person, I'm not going to trust someone to meet them up and know that they've been completely self-quarantined for the last like 2 months.
Right. Like if they keep swiping. So yeah.
No, I mean, the last date I went on, the guy was easily 10 years older in person than what his pictures were, and easily 20 to 30 pounds heavier than what all of his pictures were. So given, the honesty behind dating apps, I don't think I can trust that.
I have questions for you when we're offline. I have questions because we're in the same city, so my mind is turning now.
Ooh, no, I'm ready. I'm ready for that. But besides obviously the wonderful rookie chat that we had, what do you guys have coming out for Yahoo Sports that people can be excited about?
Yes. Well, Monday, like I said, we're doing this live draft, and that will be live streamed as well as all of the results will be on the website and on the app. I think it's going to be interesting. We're doing actually a best ball draft because Yahoo just added a best ball game last season. So we've had it for less than a year. And I'm excited to see where like Andy and I haven't really talked. I've seen his ranks, but we haven't like chatted about it. So that'll be like very live. There's 30 seconds to make every pick. So let's do it.
Yeah.
So that is happening tomorrow and I'm excited about it. Also, Yahoo is doing Boxed In, which is basically our debate show. It's any debate you've heard at a sports bar, but there are 3 people, one person advocating for one side, another for the other side, and then there's a judge. I'm doing an episode of Greatest NFL Rivalry. I'll play the judge tomorrow, and that's with Charles Robinson, who's our insider, our NFL insider and senior reporter for the NFL as well. Mm-hmm. And I believe Jay Busby, who's one of our just senior writers who covers all sports. I did one before, and that's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That new show comes out. It's been like a product of quarantine that we've done that show, and we kind of all rotate in and out, but I'm excited to be the judge on that tomorrow. And then the Yahoo Fantasy Football Pod is twice a week now on Tuesdays. We record on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so probably we'll hit Spotify or iTunes, Apple Podcasts on Wednesdays and Fridays. And the Thursday show is always me and Matt Harmon. On Tuesdays, we'll be rotating in Andy and Dalton and Scott. And then you can also just follow me on Twitter at LizLoza_FF. It's the same at LizLoza_FF on Instagram. I'm working on a later round rookie potential dynasty rookie sleeper article that will post, I believe, on Thursday of this week at Yahoo Sports or via the app. And that's covering like 5 guys. I did a bunch of player evaluation heading up to the draft, kind of looking at these rookies and doing a snapshot, if you will, of each of them, their pros, their cons, their overviews, little origin stories, background, fun facts about their histories. So I'm doing Brian Edwards, who we talked about now on the Raiders, and Antonio Gibson, who landed. He's the wide receiver running back who's giving the guy who does our eligibility in fantasy a bunch of a headache because we're not quite sure if we should give him dual eligibility or what quite yet. He will probably have wide receiver running back dual eligibility. And let's see who else. I have the new slot receiver in Baltimore, which I was really intrigued about. Like that guy is on the list. So just some of these lesser known players who might not make an immediate impact, but are names you're going to want to know, especially if they mean what they're adding to the whole of the offense, or how their presence might subtract or add to another player's stuff.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. I mean, I would love any of your insights, because when we get nuggets of gold from you on these players, like I stash those things away and I can just use those in drafts, and it's fantastic. So any new content from you guys is super helpful for me, and I definitely use it as a boon to my benefit. Although we are in one league together.
Does that start tomorrow? I think it starts drafting tomorrow.
I think that's the one that starts drafting tomorrow. So, I mean,
league, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited for that one, but also, I feel like I'm trying different things in all my leagues.
Yeah. In Dynasty, like I've been in the same Dynasty league for a decade, 7 years now. So I also don't tend to mess with Dynasty. I think I said this to you before because Yahoo doesn't have a Dynasty product. So I feel like because of that, the company asks us to be in a lot of redraft leagues. Yeah. And usually come May of most off seasons, I just need a break so badly. And I do need a break right now, but I'm not getting it. So
Oh man, but it's okay. I mean, it's just fun to, get that new info, get new insight. And because we're all starting so many extra leagues, I think I'm going to be in like 30 leagues this year. I've said yes to like so many, but hey, why not try a new draft strategy in each one and just see how it pans out?
And some of the players that you're not always, like maybe I'm not really touching Jonathan Taylor in a lot. Like I have like question marks. And so, and like, I don't love DeAndre Swift's skill set, but I've been doing player evaluations, not like with an NFL hat on, not like a fantasy hat on. So
yeah,
I just don't happen to love DeAndre Swift's skill set as much as I probably should, or certainly not as much as the Lions do. So like, I'm not taking him anywhere because this is a player that I wasn't like, I thought he was good. He was my number 3 running back, but I wasn't like, out of my seat about him. So I'm just not as interested in him. So maybe in some of these dynasty leagues, you acquire players who get to surprise you later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I mean, just, get those shares so you can get excited when we get football back and see how it pans out. There's nothing wrong with that. But guys, please follow Liz. If you don't already, you're crazy. You just need to follow Liz because she's fantastic. Thanks for tuning in. And hopefully I get to have another one-on-one with Sam sometime soon. Hopefully more people are bored in quarantine and want to hang out with me.
So, I love being with you, Sam. Thank you so much, you guys. Like I said at the top of the show, and I'm still schwitzing, getting to know you better and being introduced to your audience has been one of the true, and I mean this earnestly and honestly, highlights of my quarantine.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, stick around. I'm going to hit end broadcast so no one hears what we get to talk about next. But tune in next time, guys. Thanks.